Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with a story time. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about why I have no problems voting for a convicted felon. It is because I have been a victim of an injudicious judicial system, and in order to extrapolate on that, we're going to talk about it. It's going to be a bit of a long one, so if this is not your cup of tea, I understand. But for those of you who are interested in where I come from in my story, this is a pretty significant piece of it. My sophomore year of high school, I made friends with this guy named Mickey Lemoyne. And I'm not changing the names in this because guilty parties should face their shame. And everybody involved in this is definitely a guilty party. But I met this guy named Mickey Lemoyne, and he had been kicked out of his father's house. He had been kicked out of his mother's house. He had been kicked out of another house. And he needed somewhere to stay for a couple of days, so we let him stay at our house. He came and he stayed in my bed. He slept in my bed with me. It was a big bed. We didn't touch it. It wasn't like that. Stop. And anyway, he was like, I need to go pick up some things from my house, or the place where I was just staying. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll ride with you. So I got in the car, and we rode over there, and he went in. He got his things. He put them in the trunk. I didn't think nothing about it. We went home. A couple of days later, he was no longer welcome in my house, so he was gone again. Well, during that time, while he was out, he decided that he was going to try and blame some stuff on me. See, it turns out that while we were in that car, when we went over there, he wasn't getting his stuff. He was robbing the place, and I had no clue. I was just along for the ride. I never even got out of the car. I sat in the car the whole damn time. The police show up to him, and he's like, oh, it wasn't me. It was Pitt. And we lived 5 acres out in the booger woods, right? We were out in the country. It was us and a bunch of cows, and then some people and a whole lot more cows. But we had a barn. We didn't have cows, but we had an old barn where we used to keep equipment, and we had got a pool table. And in the middle of the night, Mickey shows up, and he puts the stolen materials. They're 2A materials, by the way, so that's important because it is a significant crime to steal 2A equipment, right? He comes and he puts those guns in my pool table in my yard, and he tells the cops that it was me that stole the things. Well, the cops show up. They go to my uncle's house because he owns the property, right? It was my uncle on this corner, and it was my house, and then the barn's over here on the other side of the 5 acres. He goes to my uncle's house, and my uncle's like, go look. By all means, do what you got to do. Follow the law. So they go and they find the guns. But they also find a trail where he had walked and placed the guns. Like they could follow the trail. So the detective's like, yeah, this is obviously a setup. We're just going to deal with him. Obviously, this is a setup. Fast forward. I met this girl. Her name was Rhonda Burkeen. And again, we are not changing the names because the guilty should face the consequences. Her name was Rhonda. And Rhonda had this habit of accusing people of things, but I didn't know about that. We dated for about 6 months, and she showed herself a little bit crazy. She attempted suicide at one point, and that's not to necessarily call it crazy, but she didn't have any reasons, right? We broke up probably 5 times in those 6 months, and after those 6 months was up, I was finally like, I can't do this anymore. Fast forward a few more months, right? This is my junior year, right? Mickey was in my sophomore year. Rhonda is in my junior year. The day before, 2 days before Christmas break, I get a phone call, middle of the night. I had not talked to Rhonda in like 4 months. And she's like, hey, can I come over? And I'm like, fuck no. Don't call me. Lose my number. I don't ever want to see you again. And I hang up the phone. It's like 11 o'clock at night, right? The next day, I'm in school, senior year. Yeah, senior year. Like we dated in junior year. This is her called me up my senior year. Like we broke up before the summer of my senior year. My senior year, the day before Christmas break, the police show up at the school, call me out of class, and like, hey, have you talked to Rhonda? I said, yeah, she called me last night. She wanted to come over, and I told her no. Like, okay, we were just wondering, she's missing. I'm like, well, that sucks, but I ain't seen her. She's crazy. I don't want nothing to do with her. I haven't seen her. I don't talk to her. As a matter of fact, last night I told her not to ever call me again and to lose my number. They're like, all right. So I go back to class, and then an hour later, they come back again. call me out of class. Again, I'm in ROTC. They call me out of class. And they're like, we're placing you under arrest. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And we'll talk about it later. And so they handcuffed me at the school in front of everybody. Duck walk me, or whatever, crow hop. That's what it is. When they hold the handcuffs right up high, so you have to kind of bounce. And then he picked me up. He grabbed me by the handcuffs and he grabbed me by my pants and he threw me in the car. Serious business. He didn't let me get in there. I was 17 years old. Threw me in the car head first. I hit the door on the other side with my head. And as we're driving to the Clinton jail in East Feliciana Parish, the cop told me he was going to kill me because apparently Rhonda was missing. Now, I am 100% honest with you when I say I told her to quit. Don't call me. Leave me alone. But you know what they arrested me for? They arrested me for the gun charges because she was missing and they had no idea where she was and they thought I was involved. And this cop told me that he was going to kill me after throwing me in the cop car because he was her cousin. They sent her cousin out to come pick me up. Ain't that awesome? And they put me in jail and they charged me with misdemeanor theft. I'm in the East Feliciana prison. It was a Friday, or the day before we got out for Christmas break. So we were about to be out of school. End of the year. It's turning off cold. 4 days into my jail, they won't set bond. They won't give me no hearing. Nothing. Like nothing. 4 days later, they come in. They found Rhonda. And she told them a wild tale. She told them that on this one specific day, I broke into her house. I drug her out of the window at knife point while her parents were in the living room. And then I proceeded to do things to her on the front yard that nobody should ever do to anybody, especially somebody who has been sexually assaulted in their life, as I have on a couple of different occasions. That's one of my hard lines. I have never had to force anybody into anything. Like, do you see these eyes? I mean, come on. And anyway, she told them this, and so they hit me with more charges. As a 17-year-old in prison, I got hit with aggravated assault, rape, kidnapping, and I think that was the gist of it. I bonded out 2 days later. I spent 7 days in jail. Now, the only reason that I am not currently a convicted apist is because that particular day that she happened to choose, I had an unshakable alibi. If it would have been the day before, I would be in prison. If it would have been the day after, I would be in prison. But the day she chose was the day I was at the military entrance processing station. My recruiter had driven me down there, checked me into the hotel with a roommate, and went back to Baton Rouge from New Orleans. I was there with no ride, with a roommate, checked in by military. And that is the only reason that I got off. Never mind the fact that the event never happened. Never mind the effect that they found out shortly after that she had run away. And she had run away not to deal with me, but to be with her boyfriend. Now, she was younger than me, right? I was 17. I was 16 when we were dating. She was younger than me. But the guy was 23. She's off in Baton Rouge with a 23-year-old, and they've got me in prison thinking that I drug her off and killed her somewheres. Now, this is East Feliciana Parish. So when they found out about that, you know what they did? They took me into the courtroom, into the little side office, and Judge Klein told me straight up that I could either join the military, I could plead guilty to the misdemeanor theft charges, and I could join the military, and it would be okay. Or they could go to court, and I would be convicted. That there would be no doubt about it. I was going to jail. I was there. I was in the car. They had eyewitness proof. They had dismissed that eyewitness proof for 1.5 years, almost 2 years. But they had eyewitness proof that I had committed the crime. But because they had charged me with all these other things for something that had not even happened, which they dropped the charges. But because of that, and the fact that they had to drop those charges because of my recruiter, they wanted to save face. So I had to join the military or go to prison. That was my choice. And so I signed their paperwork. I did what they told me to do. I had a lawyer named Nathan Fisher, and he never once went to trial with anybody that he ever represented in his entire career. He was a plea deal he was the plea deal guy. He gets you out of it with the least amount. And so he sold me up the river. Like, I wasn't there. Like, I was there, but I wasn't involved. Doesn't matter. Zero matter. I embarrassed them because they had charged me with something that was untrue because I had nothing to do with it. And if I would not have had that one particular excuse, right? If I had driven myself to MEPS, I'd be in jail. It was the fact that the recruiter brought me down there, signed me in, and I had a roommate. That is what kept me out of jail. She recanted her story, but I'm going to tell you something. If you right now run a background check on me, guess what pops up? Every single time for the last, this is 2024, that was in 1994. So for the last, 30 years? Is it 30? Yeah, 30 years. For the last 30 years, every single time anybody runs a criminal background check on me, guess what pops up? Kidnapping, aggravated assault, and rape. Every single time. For a crime where the charges were dropped. For a crime where the victim said she made it up. For a crime that never even happened. Like, it's not even a case of mistaken identity. It never happened. She said it because she didn't want her 23-year-old boyfriend to get in trouble. His name is James Parks, by the way. If you were interested, the 23-year-old that was dating somebody younger than 17, his name is James Parks. And if this, in aggregate, is why I give zero cares about why Donald Trump just got 34 charges. I know very well exactly how corrupt our judicial system is. I know very well. The guy who was the prosecutor in my case, who was in the room when Judge Klein gave me that, he's the judge for 2 parishes now. He's the judge for East Feliciana and West Feliciana Parish. He was in there. He knew it was wrong. I don't go to East Feliciana Parish. I go maybe once a year, and I go visit my grandma's grave. About once a year. I don't go out there for anything else. I don't even drive through if I can help it. Because that is one of the most corrupt places on the earth. But it allows me to understand just how corrupt our justice system is. To not take it on faith that people who have been convicted have been lawfully convicted. I have zero problems understanding how a jury can be manipulated. I have zero problems understanding how a judge can be corrupt. I have zero problems understanding the corrupt DA. I have zero problems understanding the corrupt police. I have zero problems because I grew up in East Feliciana Parish in Louisiana. Clinton, Louisiana is one of the worst places in the whole, on the whole country. Right? They talk about poverty. Poverty lives in Clinton, Louisiana, and it will never leave because they love it there. This is a long story time, and this is just me relaying a story so that it's out there, that people understand. It's not just the president that's getting corrupt officials after him. It's everybody. It's anybody that had to deal with the system, right? That's not to say anybody. That's a little bit hyperbolic there, Pitt, but it's a lot. There's a lot of innocent people in prison, and I know everybody says they're innocent, but there are a lot of innocent people in prison. I would have been in prison, a convicted rapist, if it wasn't for the simple fact that the one day she chose off the top of her head, if she would have picked one day forward or one day back, I would be in prison as a 17-year-old. I support Donald Trump. I fully believe that every single one of these charges is bullshit. I do, and I don't even need to have proof. I'm fine with you thinking I'm crazy for that. I am. Those instances chose me to make a lot of choices in my life. There were jobs I just couldn't do. There were things that I couldn't do. There are things still today. If I was to try to run for office, guess what pops up in my criminal background check? If I was to try to get a position of trust and security anywhere in my country, what pops up on my background check? I can't even get a job as a cashier. Simply because of some corrupt judges and a corrupt DA and a corrupt lawyer. And I know everybody says that. Everybody says that. But this one right here, you can take it to the bank because I own the shit I did. If I did wrong, I will tell you I did wrong. And if I need to apologize for doing wrong, I will do it. And if I don't, I won't. Sometimes bad is necessary, and I fully understand that. But what happened to me was a travesty. What happened to Trump was a travesty, and I stand with Trump 100%. I try to keep this channel these days a lot less political than I did before because I am trying to show people. Like, this is one of the goals here, is to show the people that I don't agree with that there is some understanding on the other side. I try not to call out the idiots that pop up in my page with any aggression because I want you to understand that there are people on the right side of the political aisle who care, who give a shit one way or the other, who actually wants to see everybody in this country rise, who actually wants to have all of us do good. There is somebody on the right side of the aisle who holds some of the ideals that are on the left. I believe in free speech and liberty. I believe you should be able to do with your genitals whatever you want to. I believe you should be able to grow pot and keep your guns. I'm very center, but I am so far on Trump's side that I'm almost right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. This is the story. This is it. If you've got questions, leave them down below. I am more than willing to answer any of them. I am 100% honest with, I call it my 300% honesty policy, right? I'm honest with myself. I'm 100% honest with me. I'm 100% honest with God, and I'm 100% honest with you. And that holds me accountable. I know that sounds weird, but that's just the way my stack's built. I have to hold myself accountable in the way that I need to. That is how I am holding myself accountable, is I can't lie to myself. If I find out I'm lying to myself, I have to change my views. And I have on a lot of things. We've talked about them before. If God convicts me that I'm wrong, I am 100% in. I tell him, he knows everything anyway, but I tell him all of it. And I am 100% honest with y'all. And if you call me out, we'll talk about it. I just wanted to put this out there because it is a piece of my story. One day, somebody in my family might see this and need to see it. Wonder what their pawpaw was like or something along those lines. They may Google me in 50 years when my grandkids are graduating college or my great-grandkids, and they're like, you know what, I want to find out about my pawpaw. You know what shows up? To the crew. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace.